Hi, this is New Life Tuscaloosa, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the upcoming month of October. We're going to be there next week. It's the time when some of the most uh, outrageous things are done in the name of all just being fun and innocent. But there is some very serious occultic, satanic roots involved in the celebration of Halloween. I read recently that there will be between 11 and 12 billion, yes, I said $1 billion, spent for Halloween decorations and costumes and candies and parties and all of those things that will take place. Most of the time when people think of Halloween, they think about witches and ghosts and jack-o'-lanterns and trick-or-treat, dressing up in costumes, and usually they'll think a little bit about some uh, fortune telling and some of those kind of things. Well, actually, all of those things that people think uh, about when they think about Halloween really have nothing to do with the name Halloween. And we're going to get to that at a later time. Right now, you need to understand that Halloween is actually celebrated on October the 31st, and it has its roots in a pagan festival called Samhain. It was celebrated by the Druids in the Celtic Islands, and the name actually means summer's end. You see, the Druids were the priesthood of this religion, and they were nature worshipers. I actually think that possibly this green environmental craze has something to do with the resurgence of the Druids that are coming forth at this time. Druid actually means knowing the oak tree. And any of you that have ever been around Tuscaloosa, Alabama, know that we are called the Druid City. And we're so named because of all the Druid oaks that were planted in our city. Now, the Druids had their roots, their priesthood roots, in the cults of Dionysus, who was also called, same goddess, was called Venus in Rome. She was called Diana in Ephesus, and Isis in Egypt, and Astaroth or Ishtar of the Canaanites. This particular being, they called her a goddess. She was a demonic principality, was actually the occult goddess of orgastic and sexual practices and fertility. What they believed was that October the 31st was the end of the summer season, the end of the growing and fertile season, and the beginning of the season of death. So there would be an exchange of the gods, if you will. And that's what they celebrated at that time. They were multi-deistic, and they worshipped nature and the nature gods. They worshipped the sun and the moon and oak trees. And it's interesting to note that this Ashtaroth was the spirit that brought such havoc for the nation of Israel and pulling them away from the true and living God, Jehovah. Now, it's the same being, the same entity that's called Ishtar. And if you've read any of Jonathan Cahn's books, especially the one called Return of the Gods, you will understand the background of Ishtar or Ashtaroth and realize that she was a goddess who fostered transgenderism and sexual perversions. And so they celebrated this Samhain, or this New Year's, on October the 31st. And at this time, they believed that the goddess of fertility, Ishtar, was replaced, or went away, while the god of death came and ascended. So it was also at this time that they believed that the souls of the dead were gathered, and their destination from this life would be determined at this time. Now, it was the time that they made sacrifices and prayers for the dead to seek to improve their existence in the afterlife. Now, they celebrated fire festivals, and it was a time that they had huge bonfires, and many times there were built these effigies, giant wicker statues, and they would actually put human beings inside of them and light them on fire. And it was a time of actual human sacrifice for these things. Now, the jack-o'-lantern that everybody seems to be so thinks so cute, they want to carve pumpkins and stuff. Jack-o'-lanterns were originally carved out of turnips, believe it or not, but they were designed and created to transport sacred fire. They would go to these bonfires, they would go to these places where they had these sacrifices by fire, even of humans, and they would collect some of this fire, put it in their jack-o'-lantern, and they would carry it to their homes. It was in the turnip or the pumpkin with places cut out for the light. And so they would carry this sacred fire back to their home, and that was supposed to ensure them that their home would be safe and they would have prosperity for the next year. Now, they also believed that the dead visited homes during this time. They believed that they would go. They actually thought the dead people would come around from house to house, and they would demand reward. And if they were not given a reward that was going to be acceptable to them, they would bring calamity on the household. Now, of course, people being what they are, there were people that decided they would dress up and disguise themselves as these spirits of the dead, and they would go from house to house demanding these rewards so that there would not come calamity on the household. And that really is the roots of trick or treat. And I know you think about little children used to years ago. I'm really old, but years ago, you went into your neighborhood and you had a small bag and you got a few pieces of candy and you came home. Today, people drive miles and miles. They carry their children to what they perceive to be affluent neighborhoods, and they have these huge containers that they want to be loaded up with the candies and those kind of things. Well, first of all, that much candy is not really healthy for children, but I want you to think about that. How desperate would you have to be for your child to have some candy, to take them to the home, let them go up and ring the doorbell of a perfect stranger and take candy from this person that they do not know in this age that is so evil and perverted? Who would think about their little children doing that? It goes beyond any kind of rational thought to me that you would want your children to do that. So this was the time that they offered, as I said earlier, it was the time they offered prayers for the dead. And they believed that this was also a time witches would have special times of casting spells and pronouncing curses and those kind of things. And right now, today, truly, October the 31st is one of the most important times for modern day witches to meet in covens and to do their rituals of pronouncing curses and casting spells and doing all of those kinds of things. Now, there are going to be people that actually, when they hear me talk about these things, they're going to actually think that my trolley's kind of slipped off the track. But I'm telling you, people, there are witches in the world today. And even though many people, even Christians, who think this is all kind of fun and games, I'm telling you, those involved in true witchcraft and the occult are very serious about the things that they are doing. Now, they believed that the afterlife for the people, for these spirits that were being gathered up, the spirit of death was gathering up. They believed their afterlife would be lessened by prayers and sacrifices to this god of death, Mok'ala, as he was called. And so I want you to just kind of plant that in your mind. Praying for the dead was a part of the paganistic, occultic roots, druid roots of Halloween. Now, the Romans conquered the Celtic areas, and the Druids were conquered by the Romans, and their beliefs were transmitted into the Roman culture. Rome would do that often. They would assimilate the beliefs of the cultures that they were taking over. They felt that it would be easier to take control of the people. And so those are just a few of the basic things. I want to check back over my notes here and see if I left anything out. I think it's very important to understand this. All of this pagan stuff about telling fortunes and witches and witchcraft and disguising yourself and those kind of things. In the Bible, the Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy, here's what the scripture says. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 9 through 12. And I read, "When you enter into the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations that are there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire." King James the Bible there says, "who passes their son or daughter through the fire." Child sacrifice in the land of Canaanites, was a very prevalent thing that God was warning his people about. What they would actually do. There was a principality they called a god. His name was Moloch, and they would build this giant metal statue that was hollow. It was really like a stove, a pot-bellied stove that was shaped like a statue, and they would build this huge fire inside of it. And when the metal would begin to glow with extreme heat, then the people would bring their babies and lay them up in the arms of this statue. And of course, they would die from this unbearable and intense heat that was being done there. You know, in our society, we don't have a metal statue, but babies are being sacrificed. The people in those days sacrificed to Moloch so that they would have a prosperous year and fertile crops and those kind of things. People today sacrifice their babies to abortion so that they can their lives won't be interrupted and they can be successful and do the things they want to do. I remember one time several years ago, I saw a clip. I don't watch the Oscars and I didn't watch this, but there was a news clip of an actress who was on the stage at the Oscar, and she had won an Oscar for some performance that she had done in a movie. And she was so excited, clutching her little gold idol, her statue in her hand. And she was saying and testifying to the fact that if she had not been able to have reproductive rights, which is just another way of saying abortion or murdering my baby, if it hadn't been for that, I would never have been able to achieve this success. And I was absolutely astounded. I could not imagine anyone thinking that that little statue and public acclaim and applause was worth the life of their child. But that's what she testified. So the Lord is even back then warning them, don't sacrifice your children to these false gods. He also told them that they were uh, not to practice divination or sorcery. Now, divination was just a way of trying to gain information concerning the future. They depended on omens, and they would have all kind of ways that they tried to discern what was going to be happening in the future. Sorcery was a type of occultism that engaged the demonic realm through the use of drugs. The word sorcery actually comes from the word pharmakia, which is like where we get the word pharmacy, but they would use drugs to go into these trances, and they would think they could gain insight and information about that. So trying to gain information about the future, do you see what they're saying? If there is some kind of simple little omen that you could look at, that you could say, oh, this happened, so your future is going to look like that, then you're saying that your life is just up to chance, that it's just already determined. And the Word of God makes it very plain. The choices that we make have a powerful impact on where our life will go. It's so important to seek the Lord. I'm telling you, the Lord loves you and He has a purpose for you. He has a plan for you. And if you will seek Him, He will make Himself known to you. If you are a Christian, He will speak to you. He says, my sheep hear my voice. You, as a child of God, have the privilege of hearing the voice of God. I live down Highway 69, and right on down toward Moundville, there's a big sign on the side of the road with a big red hand. There's a fortune teller, and people go. She's been there for years, so she has been in business for years of so-called reading palms and doing other occult things to tell people their future. And the choices that you make in your life, your determination to actively serve the Lord is going to have a big impact on your future. Now, I am not nearly through with the things that I wanted to share with you about this. I am going to go ahead and end this session out. I will possibly try to do another one tomorrow that we can put on. And I hope that you will check it out and gain some information about this. Halloween is not a little fun and games thing. It's an occult holiday. And many Christian people, ignorantly, and some of them willfully, are actually empowering occult spirits to activate and be more present at this time. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. Our society is in a bad enough shape as it is. So I'm going to end for right now. God bless you. This is New Life Tuscaloosa, and I am Sammy Hughes. Thank you, and God bless you.